I do believe that the AI got upset. I do believe the AI got upset. You've heard it here first. I'm being targeted. The AIs are after me. The AIs are after me. All right. So, I know we covered how basically Meta said that they wanted people to use their Llama AI and make money off of it. They were going to give it for free. They were going to give it for free. But I have seen this from a couple places. Now, I haven't seen it from Meta themselves, so I don't know. But it does coincide with what we saw from Microsoft, where Microsoft is effectively licensing it and providing it. It now says Meta to charge cloud computing company fees for AI model Llama 2, despite initial open source plans. Like I said, I never actually saw it open source. I saw things around it that were open source, but the actual model never really surfaced, not that I found. Meta shifts from an open source to charging fees for its AI Llama 2, targeting major cloud provider like Microsoft and Alphabet. The decision to charge fees is based on the belief that these companies are reselling Meta services and should share revenue. It says that Llama 2 is going to remain open source. I don't know what it means by open source, because technically by the open source standards, you can't target a person, which means that this couldn't be actually open source. What they probably mean is freely available for developers, but cloud computing companies with over 700 million monthly users will require it. They're literally targeting the top 3. Everybody else can use it. So anyways, that looks to be happening. Stability AI released its largest image generating model, Stable Diffusion XL 1.0. Nothing big there. This was interesting. Big tech under pressure as Microsoft results put AI cost in spotlight. So Microsoft released their release. I said the release notes, but their investors, they did their earnings report, and one of the big highlights here was that they were going to have to spend a lot more money on AI before it turned a profit, meaning Microsoft is losing money on it and they need to invest more. How much more? How much have they already paid for OpenAI? I can tell you a lot. I think it was $10 billion. I do. One second, we can look that up. I knew that off the top of my head, and then I'm like, man, I'm going to say 10 billion, but how much did Microsoft pay for? So they underlined it. Yeah, $10 billion. Okay. They underlined it as a specific place where they needed to do a lot more investment to see any type of payoff. Yeah, so that actually drove Microsoft stocks down because they've already put a lot of money into it. So yeah. Now, another piece of news that I thought was worth covering here. ChatGPT creator says AI advocates. Absolutely. It's not. AI is expensive. AI is expensive, from the hardware to run it and serve it to the training it is also expensive. I don't think that AI is particularly effective at a hand-coded alternate solution. If you're talking about the cost to run ChatGPT, I believe it has crossed $1 billion or $1 million a day. One second, we can look that stat up as well. What was this? The stat. The last stat on April 21st was $700,000 a day. So it would not surprise me if they were to $1 million a day in spend to run it. About 36 cents per question. But yeah, not only do they have to spend money to train it, they have to have hardware to train it, and they have to then have engineers that are training it and orchestrating the training, and they have to have engineers that are working on serving it and doing efficiency gains. They have to have data scientists and engineers. There is so much that goes into it, and we're just getting to something that's barely useful that comes down to about 36 cents per question asked. That's actually really bad. Like, people don't realize that, but if my API costs 37 cents to call, that's staggeringly horrible. That's really bad. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like people don't realize that. When will AI become a larger when Bitcoin dies? That will happen the day Bitcoin dies. All right. So, ChatGPT creator comes out and says AI advocates are fooling themselves if they think the technology is only going to be good for workers. Jobs are definitely going to go away. You can see that. This is the legendary Sam Altman saying stuff. Now, let me tell you something about human history. There are trillions of jobs that have gone away to one invention. And this one invention has literally, it used to be that 9 out of 10 people had this job. 9 out of 10 people had this job. That job's called farming. And not that long ago, 2,000 years, 3,000 years ago, almost everyone at least did some farming. Now, we collectively said farming sucks, and we would prefer to do stuff like stream or make movies. But we can't if we all have to be farmers. Humans have, for almost their entire time, created tools to alleviate the jobs they didn't want to do. That's literally what we have done for our entire history. So, will generative AI and stuff replace some jobs? Absolutely. But I do believe, and the displacement for some of those people will suck. Unfortunately, 100%. I agree with that as well. I do believe, though, that generally this is how we move on to doing other stuff as well. So, also, the AI we have seen, I'm not so sure this is, yeah. I don't know that this is the thing that's going to replace jobs. Maybe in 5 years, we can have a different conversation. Another interesting article that came up with this, over just a few months, ChatGPT went from correctly answering a simple math problem 98% of the time to just 2% of the time, a study finds. Now, what I find is this is completely misleading. This study, if you looked at it, asked ChatGPT if this number is a prime number. And this says a simple math problem. Finding and discovering if something is a prime number is not a simple math problem. In fact, to do it, to actually know if this is a prime number, is you would win a lot of awards if you could do that. Literally, to know if this was a prime number, mathematically, you would win a lot of awards. And you would break all cryptography as we know it. But that's beyond the point. I think that this was very misleading because it sounds simple. We're like, oh, I can tell a prime because nothing else can go into it. The problem is with large primes is telling if nothing goes into a large prime is months and years of work. Now, so I don't know. Now, I say that ChatGPT doesn't feel like it's as good as it was. I agree with that as well. But I don't think that this is a good study. All right. I don't know if that number is prime. I just told you that there's no, like, I don't know. That's a hard problem. We don't know how to solve that problem. It literally asked it a question we don't know how to solve. I mean, without brute forcing. Which the AI isn't a brute force machine. It doesn't sit there and divide it by everything. Like, it's just not a fair question to ask. It's just not even a reasonable idea of whether it's sophisticated or not, or can do the jobs that you might want it to do. And I think that this, I don't know. I get really annoyed with these types of articles because I feel like they misread lead a lot of people that are like, oh, it's all of a sudden almost 100% worse than it was. It's just garbage now. The problem is ChatGPT was never meant to do math, and all it's going to do is Google it. It is Prime. Pay you 36 cents now. Oh gosh. Yeah. All right. So there's some other news that we're gonna jump through. As Microsoft and Google pour billions of dollars into AI, they had to come up with a way to protect it. And to do that, they've taken two approaches. Fear, spreading falsehoods about what their AIs are capable of doing. I think calling it AI in the first place is probably wrong. Machine learning is a much better way of doing it. But now they are also exerting the entire federal government to try to regulate artificial intelligence so that now only Microsoft, Google, and Anthropic will be able, and OpenAI, will be able to do it. So there goes all of our awesomeness. That was really opinionated. I'm sorry. I'm not usually that opinionated on these things, but this actually annoys me a little bit because I have called out that they're fear-mongering to try to do that. Especially because these are the same companies that have said stuff notoriously like we have no moat. And where we have seen small companies be able to replicate, Cody is a perfect example. Cody's pretty fantastic from the little bit that I've used it. It's not as good, but it's pretty awesome for a really small company that did it. And so I literally everything that I've seen says this is them hedging their bets to try to keep people away from the thing that they want. The thing that they're spending billions of dollars on. All right. NVIDIA H100 GPUs now available on AWS Cloud. We already touched on this. We already talked a little bit about it. I wanted to circle back because NVIDIA announced this as well. So the new P5 instances, which industry-leading performance, like I said, they said that it saves you about 40%. Probably very specific workloads that save you that much, but they're there. That was followed up by NVIDIA DGX Cloud AI Supercomputing brings AI training as a service. So basically, NVIDIA in their cloud infrastructure is providing generative AI training as a service. Now, I haven't used it. I don't know. But yeah, so basically, they're pushing this. Now, a lot of this is hosted on, I believe it's Oracle's, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, as well as NVIDIA infrastructure in the US and UK. So basically, they use Oracle outside of the US and UK. And they also have the H100 cards in them. So anyways, I think really where you're going to see a lot of money being made is from the people that provide you the ability to train your own models. I actually really think that's where the money is going to land. We'll see how it works out. But yeah. Deciding who gets Microsoft 360 Pro. This is another thing showing just how expensive this type of AI stuff is. Basically, it turned out that buying Microsoft 365 Copilot was a lot more expensive than than people were going to imagine. It comes out to $360 per year if you pay for it for a whole year. It's a little bit more expensive if you pay for it monthly. I think it's $30 per user per month. And you know what? I would assume that this $30 a user a month loses them money. Based off of the 36 cents a question, I'm assuming that they are planning on efficiency gains and stuff like that to actually make this make them money, or possibly increasing it after people find value in it. Because I think they probably will lose money at $30 per user, or they're hoping that people pay for it and don't use it. That's the other option. And I think that's actually how a lot of places, you're going to have 10% of your users who actually cost you slightly money on some things like this. But then the other 80%, they ask one question per day and they're under their $30 per month. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's actually a really good point. It's not just $30. It's not available in the lower end subscription tiers. I think it's the mid tier. You don't have to have the high end. I forget, but it's only select corporations that can even do it based off of their licensing. Yeah. It's pretty expensive. It's pretty expensive. People were kind of shocked by it. And the last article in our AI, we'll start halfway down it. How to responsibly adopt GitHub Copilot with the GitHub Copilot Trust Center. So all of you who were worried about trusting GitHub, GitHub has come and said, don't worry, you can trust us. Now, I actually think beyond all that, this is actually a really cool release. So this is basically helping you understand GitHub Copilot and how they use data, how they use your data, how they don't use their data, and they build a whole trust center for it. So you can go over their security, their privacy, their IP and open source, how they're dealing with the safeguards that they have in place to mitigate that and to ensure that your IP doesn't end up in their training and things like that. So I think this was good of them. I'm not saying that this is enough from them. But it will be helpful for people that are trying to justify it at work. 100% Russell. It might also help. It might also help some smaller corporations not worry about the legal ramifications. I think probably. But we'll see. We'll see what that plays into. I'm keeping an eye out on this type of thing. So yeah. All right. I saw something that kind of excited me about GNOME. Now, I stream with i3 because I find the ability to do this is really nice for streaming. I just really do. I showed you and wasn't even showing you my screen. I find the ability to do something like this, where you can flip through your screens really easy for streaming. All of that is really nice for streaming. It's one of the nicest streaming environments that I've seen set up. But i3 does have some lacking stuff like volume controls and things like that just a nice desktop provides. This article, GNOME plans to add a new unconventional window management system. I'm kind of excited about seeing this and seeing where it lands. So GNOME window management functionality, this post goes on. Basically, they want a mosaic and a tiling. And basically, there's like different types of desktops that you can have that will do, whether it's tiling or mosaic or whatnot. And this will all be based off of space that's available. I don't know. It sounds interesting. Now, this isn't out. This is more of a concept and a thought, but I'm kind of excited. I'm going to be watching to see what they come up with. GitLab is now supported in JetBrains IDE, so for all of you guys that use the inferior IDEs, you can now use the inferior GitHub. I'm sorry, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing for all of you. I know that a lot of you like JetBrains IDEs, go for it. And I know that there's a lot of people that like GitLab as well, so also go for it. I'm just teasing. I think this was cool. If you use JetBrains or GitLab, definitely worth checking out. I know that I haven't actually been using it, but I know that there's actually GitHub integration and Git integration in Visual Studio Code, and that kind of has encouraged me to actually check it out and play around with it a little bit more, because I think you can like see some diffs and stuff right in your IDE, which might be really interesting it might be really powerful, and I haven't been using it. So this has encouraged me to check out a new feature. This man using Hydra as a go. You, you know I was teasing. I was just teasing. 1980s tech. I told you. I'm ready for Gnome's new window management. Actually, another thing on the news that I didn't have released here, because I'm not sure it really qualifies as open source, is the Cosmic Desktop has been released a little bit publicly. I say a little bit. I've been looking at to whether I can try Cosmic out or not. As far as right now, I haven't been able to get my hands on it to try out, but I am looking at trying that out as soon as I can. Okay, so open source. Overture Maps Foundation releases its first worldwide open map dataset. So this is kind of Microsoft's, I think it's Microsoft, Google, and Meta to combined. I forget exactly who's behind this. I looked up the list. I looked up the list so I could say it in my little announcement of it. Crap. All right. Let me find out who this was. One second. That's not that. Microsoft, Meta's, Amazon. Oh, and TomTom. Okay. I was gonna say maybe not Google. Definitely not Google. Google already has their own mapping data. So this is kind of combat Google. Anyhow, so a lot of the big players have put a lot into this. I think this will be interesting because I think honestly having a strong mapping technology that you can use has been a downfall of a lot of other mapping technologies. Honestly, like MapQuest. Honestly, I liked MapQuest better than Google Maps, except for the fact that their mapping technology was bad. The user interface was nicer. They did a lot of things like calculate how much gas it would take, and if you had your car in there with its average gas, it would even recommend places to stop for gas. I just liked it better, but it was not as good of a mapping. It didn't have as good of maps. So I'm excited about this. I am. I don't have an app to make on it, but maybe you do. Maybe you could use it, and that would be cool. Maybe we could host this too, so people could actually like use it. Like via an API. This was cool. RISC-V is now an official Debian release. So I knew that Debian was targeting RISC-V for Debian 13, and it now appears that Trixie is aiming to be supported. It now appears that RISC-V is aiming to be supported in Trixie. I reversed that sentence poorly. And so that's really awesome. It means Debian is the place to go. I'm gonna see if, or I'm waiting to see if clones. Yeah, I'm looking at Ubuntu, and the Raspberry Pi. If they adopt the Debian changes and pull them into their own distributions, all those horrible Red Hat clones. Debian clones. Because we despise Debian clones, all clones, in fact. All right, you just checked. Thank you for checking. Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and TomTom. Awesome. Thank you. I looked that list up, and that sounded right when you said it. And then I forgot it. But yeah, so I'm excited about that. Arch Linux, Arch install. We all love Arch here. I have a love-hate. Sometimes I hate, sometimes I love. I know I'm also somewhat joking, like with the statement about the inferior JetBrains IDE. I was joking. Yep, and I was joking about the dirty repackager. I think that should be a shirt. I think that should be a shirt. I also like. I mean, that's kind of the fun of these distributions is you can take them and repackage them. It's kind of the beauty of it. As previously warned, this release may have breaking changes in terms of configuration and API layer. So if you have been using Arch install and you've been using its API, there are breaking changes. The biggest thing that I learned from this was that, in fact, Arch install is a Python script. Didn't know that. And still I started looking into the changes. But it is, in fact, Python. So I can't contribute to it. Cannot. One of the things that was interesting that they did, which I think was a good change, some functions that aren't intended to be used directly have been renamed to, so because they can't easily have internal things that you can't actually access, what they've done is they've prefixed it with an underscore to say, hey, this is an internal function. It's not meant to be used as an API. So I think that this is really good. I think that this is really going to help downstream dirty repackagers. I think this is going to help dirty repackagers like Manjaro, or is it Manjaro? I don't really know. J's are horrible. But those dirty repackagers are really going to benefit from this because it's going to make using those types of things a little bit easier. So I'm assuming places. I know that Manjaro has like a GUI user interface. I'm assuming it uses the Arch install Python. That would be my assumption. But yeah. Anyways, that was it for my open source. I didn't have any really exciting Kubernetes news. So we're gonna kind of skip that, and we'll jump over into software engineering. Also, kind of open source. These are a little fuzzy. Canonical announced a real-time Ubuntu optimized for Intel Core CPUs. Now, unfortunately, this is for Intel Core CPUs, but the real-time applications are really cool. So a real-time OS is something more like you would see in an embedded application that you can use to control different applications. Now, this is, again, for Intel Core processors, not your ARM processors. But I'm hoping to see more real-time features from this. Now, this does require a Ubuntu Pro subscription, which is why it's not in the open source. But I like seeing the expansion of their real-time OS. I think that's actually one of the things we're kind of lacking a little. This was a fantastic article about scaling merge ORT across GitHub. So GitHub switched to performing merges and rebases using merge ORT. Come behind the scenes to see why and how we made this change. So I recommend people read this article. We can read it together. I have already read it though, so we can't do like a reaction because I have already read it. But yeah, it goes. You know, this is something I wish more blog articles started with. I say I wish, but a lot of do. But I love setting out requirements. I love setting out requirements and then getting to talk through why. Because the reason these are so important is because if you understand their requirements, you might also understand why what they did isn't right for you, because you don't have the exact same requirements. So I think it would be I think it's a good article to read. So this is not about the merge queue feature. Merge queue feature is a feature we talked about last week that allows you to make a merge queue for your repository. This is literally about how they merge commits. So it's a good article. I would read it, or I would recommend reading it. On top of that, they released metrics for issues, pull requests, and discussions. So with the new issues, metrics, GitHub action, you can track and monitor important metrics related to issues, pull requests, and discussions, such as time to first response, time to close, and more. So I've seen bots that do this, that track these things, but now it's kind of built right into GitHub Actions, which I think is actually pretty cool, that they're giving you a way via GitHub Actions in GitHub to have more data-driven actions and data to report on. So it's going to let you and your engineering teams understand what's happening a little bit better. Where are you doing well? Where do you need improvement? This all usually then comes down to management having a good plan to help facilitate a process change to alleviate where you need to make improvements. If you don't know that you don't respond to issues for 3 weeks on average, then you could never actually focus on trying to figure out something to fix that. It's not pointing fingers at people, it's understanding what you're good at and what you're not good at. All right, Val. The Val programming language is here. Look at that. Look at that. All right. We're done with Rust. Val is here. Val is valiant, is verily awesome, is I can't come up with another Val word. Valve. Basically, our goals overlap substantially with that of Rust and other commendable efforts such as Zig or Veil. Besides other programming languages, we have value semantics, okay, and provide excellent support for generic programming, Swift or Haskell. So, anyways, I don't know. I'm not jumping on board just yet. But there is Val. It was released. I saw it. I want to let you guys know. It kind of looks like Swift and Rust had a baby. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Value for money, Valorant. Dang it. You're so much better at coming up with these. Survive Val. Wait. That's when there's an AI and you have to survive the AI called Val. Survive Val. All right. So yeah, I don't know. Also, I want you guys to all know that Lyft CEO revises work from home balance. Now ask employees. Their CEO thinks employees should want to come back to the office for the snacks. I don't know what type of snacks Lyft is offering, but they have to be the best snacks I have ever had. They have to be the most absolute delicious snacks that I don't even know what these snacks are. Like, I can't even come up with the snacks that these people, like, they have to be made by a chef, I believe. I think this is amazingly tone deaf from a CEO. I think this is amazingly tone deaf. Anyways, there you go. Lyft on the places that where not to work. All right, this next thing is what we're all here for. It's what my title alluded to, what we're most excited about for in life. There was a big thing that happened this week, a big thing that's going to take your eyes by surprise. Now, I want to warn you, something I didn't really think about is legal protections, like in the United States, I don't know other places in the world, protect your right to not self-incriminate. And so, like, basically, if your phone is protected by a PIN or a password, the police cannot force you to tell them your PIN or your password. They can't force you to speak to them. But biometric data is not protected like that. So your fingerprints, they 100% can. So if you use biometrics on your phone to unlock it, they 100% can take your biometrics to unlock your phone. So maybe your biometrics are something you want to be careful about. And this is not legal advice. Let me pre-do that. $24-hour free bar. Do you know what the craziest part about this? The craziest part about stuff like this. How much money are you willing to spend to bring people into an office that they don't want to be at, that you have to bribe them to be at? And then you can look at the plethora of studies that say workers that work from home generally work 10% more hours and are more productive. I don't understand the mismatch. Now you can find studies that will say that workers that work from home typically don't work from 4 to 6. Sure, that's also probably true. But what does that actually mean? It makes sense for Lyft. They want people to use their taxi. I guess. Like, if nobody's working from the office, they lose some of their revenue. Like, I guess maybe that's what they're thinking. I just don't understand why you would pay for office space, that you would pay for snacks, you would pay for the bar, you would pay for all of those things to have your employees less productive. I don't understand it. And if you're saying that you're not getting the water cooling, then that's a mismanagement of your process. If you're relying on creativity around a drinking fountain, you are screwing yourself, because then you say that you have no process for creativity, you have no way to encourage creativity amongst your team, and that you have no idea how it happens. It just randomly happens when people bump into each other in the office. It's insane to go back to the office if you don't need to. Now, I do want to preface that everything I'm saying, if you're a doctor, you got to see your patients. If you're like, there are jobs that require you to be there, and there's nothing that can be done about that. And I'm not talking about those. 100%. If you're a painter, you probably have to go to the house to paint the house. If you like that, I'm not talking about those. Anyways, I just find that it is... Right. Let's talk about the CO2 cost of air conditioning a office space and the person's house. The CO2 emissions of driving to the work, the cost of that on public infrastructure that's already strained. I don't know any major city that doesn't have strained public infrastructure. The the list goes on. I just don't understand how this makes sense and why they're even pushing for that. I 100% would not be mad if a company like Lyft said, hey, we're doing every job that can be remote, and this is part of our CO2 pledge, and we've calculated that it's going to be X. Awesome. I don't get this. I just don't get it. Anyways. It doesn't make sense to me. And, I've never been a CEO. So maybe I just don't understand. Like, maybe I'm just too stupid to understand. Maybe I'm just a simple person with a simple mind that can't understand why micromanaging is such a great deal. But I just don't get it. All right, I'm going to not keep on that because you guys understand. I don't get it. I wanted to show that because I thought, like, they're making it more expensive. Like, they're costing themselves more to try to get people to work fewer hours at the office. I don't get it. All right. WorldCoin, OpenAI's founder. Again, OpenAI's founder, not OpenAI. I do believe somebody was getting that confused. Eye scanning crypto project launches. So you can go get your retinas scanned if you so like. It's fun. I've heard. I have not done it. Um, go out there, get your eyes scanned. I am not sure what this actually does. I'm not sure the benefits of it. I know Sam Altman will say it's to prove who you are online, to prove who the robots aren't. Like, robots don't have retinas, but I've never come across this as a struggle. I don't need you to know my retinas for you to know that I'm not a robot. I don't know. Do you guys find this to be useful? Do you find this to be amazing? Okay, so let's read the comments here. Russell, I like this take. There are two camps. One makes money from people going into the city, and I get that. I guess that's never been my camp, so I've never thought that way. But I get what you're saying. And the others have trust issues and think their employees are going to con them. So they have no way of measuring the flow of work. I get it. And Scam Altman's going to scam effectively. Effectively, this is. I find I really need to get my crypto video out. This has really pushed me because I feel like there are people who are going to get hurt or by scamming. Scamming hurts people. Scamming hurts people in at the end of the day. Now, I was going to go over this article. Exploring Chroma, the open source vector database for LLMs. But the people who wanted to talk about LLMs, I don't see online today. So maybe we'll push this off another time. I need to make a video on what vector databases are good for. There is a misconception that maybe they're only good for LLMs or machine learning or likewise, where there's actually some other uses for them. The other thing that's very confusing is a lot of people understand row-based versus column-oriented versus, document-oriented. And even some now, thanks to a YouTube channel, understand what a log-based database is. But very few understand how a vector database stores data. So I think we need to go into that. It's probably a good video. I actually want to do the first part online live with you guys. Maybe we'll do it a Saturday, do like a half an hour thing, because I want to get questions from you guys that I probably won't even know how to answer. I've never made a vector database. I know the basics of vector databases, but those questions will let me go and investigate stuff, figure that stuff out to make a really awesome YouTube video that has even more content with the feedback from you guys. Are they good for CVs? Like padding CVs with fashionable tech? Wait, what are you talking about, Russell? Are you saying vector DBs are good for padding CVs? Okay, I think I get what you're saying. Ugh. Vector DBs. They're probably good for padding DBs. Padding DBs. Padding CVs. They're probably good at that. I would have to imagine. I would have to imagine. But I think maybe next Saturday we'll spend a half an hour. I'll go over the presentation that I have. I won't have any of the nice animations, but I'll go over the ideas so that people can ask questions. I can say, I don't know, but that's a great question. And it will be in the video. I want to do more of that where I get more feedback from you all. And then can make a video that has all of that feedback compiled so it's a better video. I need to get better about doing that. And I got a video. Oh no. Oh no, but 2024 has to be like building a 2 new app in a vector DB. You know, maybe that would be good. Maybe that would be good to like demonstrate what not to do with a vector DB. Do this so you'll never do it again. Honestly, as a person who's fairly knowledgeable on databases, and I'm not, I say I'm not an expert, but I guess it depends on where you draw the line of an expert. My general guidance is use Postgres unless you have a very specific reason not to. Like, I think that's the easy guideline. Unless if you have a very specific reason not to, use Postgres. Better yet, use somebody like PlanetScale. And yeah. What is most common to do? I ignore. No, it's not finding the most common. That wouldn't be the correct thing. It would be like find all the to-dos that are like this to-do. It'd be good for a machine, a statistical analysis to find the ones that you most likely ignore. You You don't like to do so when you have to go into the office? That's about right. That's about right. All right. I guess that's it for me today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for you guys always make it a fun stream. I like the feedback. I hope you all have a fantastic next week, and I hope to see you again next weekend. Thanks, everyone.